Please give a very warm welcome to Neha, Lagoo, Ratnakar.
What do a surgeon, a hotel manager, a yoga instructor, and a data scientist have in common with me? I see a lot of puzzled faces. Don't worry, it's a trick question. Because I found myself asking the same question to myself a few years ago as I stood alongside them. Turns out we had three things in common. Number one, we were all standing outside the school pickup line, waiting for our kids. That little ray of sunshine that you see is my daughter, who was 4 at the time and had just started school. So I found myself standing next to these talented women outside the school pickup line. The second thing we had in common was that we all had taken a career break. And number three was that we were all women who were desperately trying to get back on track in the career workforce. Now, I later realized that we were far from unusual. When mothers take a career break for caregiving, they often fall off the bandwagon, and it's almost impossible for them to get back on track. They don't stop working because they don't want to work. They stop because it's incredibly difficult to restart careers after a break. And this is extremely true in meaningful roles. They may start in a part-time position, they may start as a freelancer, but getting back to those sweet spots in organizations in senior positions, it's extremely difficult. And that is why I think this motherhood break is the reason, this leakage is a huge reason why there's a big gender gap in the middle management positions and the senior leadership positions. Let's take a look at a picture to understand this leakage better. I made this sketch, by the way. So in the beginning of the careers, men and women, they start in equal numbers. And they stay strong till the middle management positions, when there's this big dip in the number of women in the workforce. This dip beautifully coincides with the time when families start having children. And since there is this big dip in the middle management, of course, the gender ratios in the senior leadership positions are equally skewed because there aren't enough women to choose from. Now, this gender diversity gap is everywhere, and we don't have to look any further than hospitality industry, where only 5% CEOs are women, despite women being more than half of the workforce. Let that sink in. Only 5% women CEOs representing more than 50% of female working population in hospitality. If that is the case in hospitality, which thrives on caretaking and empathy as its core competencies, which are also seen as very stereotypically feminine qualities, what hope do we have for other industries? Because the fact is that this dip, this gap, is across industries and it's across countries. Now, most countries have very strict rules, very strict laws even, to make sure that women and girls get equal education. And hence, there's this steady supply of women in the beginning of the careers. And some countries even have quotas these days to ensure that the board of directors and senior leadership have representation of women. But nobody's really questioning this middle management dip, this leakage, where the problem actually begins. It is because of this dip that we have inequality at later stages in senior leadership. And because of this, I think even though we've been working towards gender equality for decades and decades, gender, which is that one diversity parameter which can be legally tracked by companies, it's still a painfully slow needle to move. And hence, it looks like we are chasing this elusive 50% all the time. But I believe that it doesn't need to be elusive. We all have enough business intelligence and specifically marketing intelligence to actually bridge this gap. Marketing intelligence? Neha, have you lost it? Isn't it HR's job to figure out gender diversity, make sure that there are enough women in middle and senior management positions? Actually, no. It is a leadership problem. And you, as leaders and future leaders, need to rethink how you're finding talent. I'll tell you how I stumbled into this realization. Years ago, when I was the CEO of a learning through gamification startup, we were looking for a business development executive. We were looking for somebody in full-time positions. But it was very difficult because we realized that on our shoestring budget, we couldn't afford one. So we started looking for a part-time employee. But it was almost impossible till I met an old friend who was on a maternity break. I was chatting with her and she said, "Look, Neha, I would love to help you. But right now my baby is still too young and he needs me full time. Just wait for me for a couple of years and I'm all yours. I'm happy to help." That's when it struck me. I had been looking for the wrong keywords. I was using the wrong keywords all along. So I immediately went back home. And in my keyword searches, apart from business development and sales, I added a new keyword. I added maternity break. And voila, within a few minutes, I had dozens of highly qualified and highly motivated women in sales pop up. They had all taken a career break and they were more than happy to join my small startup in a remote part-time position in business development. The woman we finally ended up hiring was a complete rock star. She got lots of big accounts to our company. And she's still in touch with me today. Although she works for another company, she is a senior manager there and she keeps me updated on her career and in her life. And it all happened because of one keyword. Because I decided to change that keyword. She still keeps in touch, not just because we found her, but because we gave her the confidence that she could actually make a career comeback. Now, this keyword that I changed, this whole thing I did, actually has a name, I just realized. It's called Search Engine Optimization, or SEO, which essentially means using the right words so that you can find the information that you're looking for. Now, I stumbled into it by accident, but you don't have to. Most companies have very highly funded marketing teams, business intelligence teams, that can tell them exactly what to look for and where to look for it. Now, women in workplaces isn't a topic that has been very widely researched till now. And I too am guilty of believing in two myths for the longest time. The two myths were that there is an ambition gap, that women just don't want leadership positions. And the second one was that if qualified women wanted, all they had to do was to just go back to work. Who was stopping them? Right. Let's talk about ambition gap. Let me ask this room today. Think of a mother figure in your life who is educated. It can be your mother, but it can also be an aunt, an older sibling, a neighbor, an older colleague. Think of an educated older woman in your life and raise your hand once you've thought of someone. Raise your hand once you've thought of someone in your life. Wonderful. Almost everyone in this room knows a mother figure who is educated. Keep your hand up, keep your hand up. Even if you're tired, just 2 seconds. My second question is, now think about this woman, and if she has made career sacrifices in her life for the sake of her family, bring your hand down. Wow, more than 90% of you have brought your hands down. Thank you so much. You can bring your hand down. And I'm not surprised at these numbers. Growing up, I too saw lots of women in my network, in my family, just give up on their careers after they had kids and never look back. And they looked perfectly happy taking care of their kids and their household. So I never really questioned it until I had a heart-to-heart conversation with my own mother. And that's when I realized ambition is like menopause. I didn't even know that my own mother had it till I had an open conversation with her. And it still took dozens of interviews with women who had taken a career break and reading lots of research reports to tell me that there is no ambition gap. Women want those top spots in companies as much as men do. Which brings me to the second myth that I believed in, which is, why don't women just go back to work? So when I was done with my career break after my daughter started school, I thought, okay, now that I'm qualified, motivated, and available to work from tomorrow, I should find a job in a jiffy. I clearly did not know how long a jiffy is, because what I thought would be a few weeks turned into a few months, which turned into a year, that turned into 2 years, till I could finally find a company that would take a chance on me. Now, luckily, I was quite vocal about these issues. So I heard the same story from other mothers in Facebook communities of mothers outside the school pickup line. Same story repeated over and over again by other mothers who were equally frustrated with how difficult it was for them to re-enter the workforce. And not just in one location. I heard the story over and over again in the 8 countries that I lived in. For those wondering, the countries are India, China, Thailand, Russia, Netherlands, USA, and Russia. Now, I think I missed one of those. Say that out loud if you can. Mexico. Yes, those are the 8 countries where I heard the same story over and over again. Some people know their geography better than I do. So I heard the same story. And I realized that it's not the problem of women. It's the companies. When women start applying for jobs after restarting their careers, they face challenges right off the bat because companies' recruitment practices are not designed to look at the future potential. They focus more on the recent experience and education. And even when they started getting interview calls, they were constantly facing people who were biased, who had these assumptions, these unspoken assumptions that maybe she's not in touch with her field anymore, or that she's a hiring risk because she now requires some flexibility to be with her kids. Now, I can't change all of these things at once. So let's take a step back and look at marketing again. Let's borrow another page from the marketing textbook that we just saw. Let's talk about sampling. I'm sure you all have seen it in action. How stores and cafes and restaurants give you pieces of chocolates, cookies, cakes, and it helps them build relationships with future customers. And future customers can actually try the product before spending any money on it. Imagine if we use the same trick to get more women on a career break and have them join the middle management levels. Imagine a program called Sampling Spree, Experience Before Commitment, a program for career restarters. Imagine a 2 to 4 week long program for career restarters, both men and women, which is an immersive experience where career restarters get to spend time inside the company, working on life project, upskilling themselves, and really experience the culture of the company. A program like this completely flips the script, where the candidates are not judged, but they're given a supportive and hands-on environment where they can actually show their potential, their vision, their creativity. And this is a no-risk equation for the companies because there's no investment from them required, and also a low-risk equation for the candidates who can try out a company before committing. Now this program, it looks like a very fancy poster, but it's not a figment of my imagination. Programs like this have existed for a while, and some companies have actually found a lot of success in them. When I was researching for my first book, I met one person who was a product of one such program. Her name is Yana, and she was a pass out from a top business school. She started working immediately after college, and for 6 years, she worked relentlessly, rising through the ranks to the position of a senior product manager. And that's when she decided to have kids. And because she had 2 kids who required a lot of attention, extra attention, she took a career break. She took care of them for 5 years. And when she was ready to make a career comeback, she started applying for roles. But she faced rejection after rejection after rejection, despite being from a very premium business school. So she ended up accepting a short-term project with a client, which was a very high pressure, high stakes situation. And she chose it because there was no other option for her. She started working on it, and within a few months, she started getting burnt out. She had been directly thrown into the deep end after a break of 5 years. And the client wasn't very supportive. So she reached a point where she decided to quit because it was getting too much, because she had no mental peace at that point of time. Not only did she quit the client project, she also started having doubts whether she was even fit for professional work anymore. If she could ever be a working mother managing the household and her work again. Now, luckily, at this point, one such company that was running a sampling experiment found her. They not only gave her confidence to make a career comeback, but they were rewarded with an exceptionally motivated employee who is now, by the way, a consulting partner in an AI-powered supply chain giant. And it all happened because she got that opportunity to restart. Now, this sampling is only one example of a marketing technique. Imagine what we all can do if we were to use the whole marketing toolkit and the whole business intelligence that we have today. Because you know what? This is a problem that's not going to be solved in one night. And I'm very aware that in a few years, when I'm standing outside the school to drop off this second child of mine, this little cutie who starts school in a couple of years, and I'm standing there, I might still meet a yoga teacher, a surgeon, a data scientist, and a hotel manager. But this time, I know what I'll do. I'll tell them what I wish someone had told me years ago. I'll tell them that you're not alone, it's not you, and that there is a solution. Thank you.